be friends.
I didn't put my reasoning chip in this morning, so.
This, by the way, is the picture we're putting up on the. I'm going to put this up on the feed just to say that there are people here. Yay! You guys are awesome. There we go.
RP912 says asterisks. Grab seat.
Hey guys,
this is going to be good, guys. Grab your seat.
Hey, Twitch TV viewers. We just want to thank you for all the comments you've been giving us so far. We really appreciate it.
Hi. Hi.
Thanks, Twitch TV.
Angry
what were the names? Oh.
Oh.
This one had a sound effect.
Oh, we're watching us as we're. Oh my God, Inception.
This is total panelception.
Okay, yeah, no more comments.
Panels
I can't
inside
do this.
panels.
Okay, here you go.
Oh, but I didn't get through all the really good cartoon comics.
That one's my favorite.
This is a really good one. Do I have more? Oh, back at the beginning. Okay, cool. Hold on. Don't judge me by my screen, because it's really old computer.
So how you guys doing?
Hi.
I like this crowd. There's a nice mix of all different kinds of people.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, awesome. So, welcome to our panel. Apparently, there's none of you here. So,
no one's gonna find this
according to the internet. So yes, but welcome to You Game Like a Girl, Tales of Trolls and White Knights. So, my name is Anja Keister. I'm going to be moderating the panel today. Basically, what it is that when we were thinking about to really go to it, some of us performed down at the Escapist Expo a little while ago, and we actually got some really positive feedback, and we got some really negative feedback. And so at that point, we were sitting in like a Mexican restaurant at like 11 p.m. drinking and thinking about what we could do to possibly bring something to cons to bring up this issue about how the way women are treated. And so we came up with this, and I'm so excited that I have this wonderful group of panelists with me. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
So I'm Iris Explosion. Hi. I'm a sex educator and sexual health advocate, and I am a nerdy burlesque performer. And a woman. Yay! Who's a nerd.
But a reasonable woman?
I'm very unreasonable. There's gonna be cups thrown. It's gonna be crazy. So, hi guys.
Go for it, Stella. Go, Stella. Do it.
Hi, I'm Stella Chuu. I am a pro cosplayer. I'm also a burlesque performer doing nerdy burlesque based in New York City. I also, a little beknownst to the world, I'm actually also a game designer. And yeah, yay, hi guys, that's it.
I'm Susana Polo. I'm the managing editor of themarysue.com, which is a 2-year-old website that covers geeky entertainment from a female perspective.
Yay!
Hi. So Lord. Hi, I'm Shoshana Kessock. I'm a game designer. I'm the creator of Phoenix Outlaw Productions. I produce tabletop RPGs, live-action role-play games. I also do a little bit of work with video games. And I go to the MFA Center, basically Game Center, at NYU studying game design. So that's what I do.
So let's get into it. So we did want to start the show with just a bit of a disclaimer. We recognize, first of all, we recognize that gender is way more fluid than a lot of the things that we represent or that you see in society. So we understand this. We're going to be sticking to the binary today purely just so for simplification. But for all of those in between, we feel you. Yes, that person. We also do realize that that there's a lot of other marginalized groups, and we're just going to be talking about women, but we also, once again, for those of you out there that also feel oppressed in this, We feel you. Which is a good excuse to like, anyway. And also this panel is only 1 hour, so we're, you know, the conversation is not finished, but we're going to try to, so if you feel like something needed more time, that's great. Tweet it, add us, okay. And there we go. So if you have something to ask or something to say, this is a really large room, so we do want to try to stay away from people just yelling a whole lot in the audience. So if you do have something to say or you have a comment, tweet it. I'm going to be following it up here, and I will try to work it in as best as we can, and we'll try to do as best as we can to get all of your voices heard.
I just want to jump in. My parents are watching the live stream, and they really want me to say hi. So hi, Mom and Dad. Are you happy now?
Waiting to make the rest of
Hi,
us look bad.
Okay, so let's get into this. So we're going to talk about kind of 4 topics that will go nicely into each other. So the first one we're going to talk is we're just going to talk about game design and the way that women are portrayed in it. So. So this is from the Hawkeye Initiative. If you're not aware of the Hawkeye Initiative, this is what it's from. So it's a great thing where they take female characters in comics and possibly gaming, and then they make Hawkeye do the same thing that the ladies are doing. So it's a fun one. So let's start with who has a lot to say about this. Shoshana, let's start with you.
So like I said, I studied game design, and one of the reasons I specifically wanted to do game design is because growing up, I had a lot of feedback about the way women are portrayed in games. When we talk about women's portrayal, I think it's important to talk about 2 different things. One is about the way that they look and the way that they're physically represented, and the other way is about how they are represented in their roles in games. And so in their roles in games, there's been a lot of talk about like going away from the damsel in distress. Like how often have we seen that in games over the years where, you know, it's the princess in a tower and the male character is the one who goes and rescues her. Now, things have been trying to evolve over time, and that's awesome, but how many of them are just reskinned versions of the damsel in distress? I mean, they're just a slightly different version, or they're the girlfriend who gets shoved in the refrigerator, if anybody knows that term. So, I mean, I'm not going to call out any games, but I'm going to say that there's like specifically a major problem with that, and the representation doesn't really represent women in their entire like scope of being a woman. Like, how many have children? How many have stable relationships? How many people like feel that the women represent them as women? I think that's a major issue. And the other is how they look, and obviously that's something that like we can get into when we talk about cosplay a lot. But the physical representation of women is the hot button issue, I think, right now, where women are looking at the costumes and going, I don't know, chainmail bikinis, guys, I don't know about that, or, you know, I know you took a leg off of a costume there. Was it for chafing purposes, like to avoid that? Like,
yeah. Now that we're talking about the big statue when you first entered the hall.
She's like armored, but for one leg.
Yeah.
What?
So that's one of the things that like becomes a really difficult issue to talk about. Is it okay to still be sexual and be cool and look great, and yet at the same time not be an object? I think that's the most important part. So that's what got me into game design, was saying, no, like this is a thing we have to look at. When is it objectification, and when is it okay to be sexy? So yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Anybody else can jump in?
My biggest thing is that as somebody who, for my job, I do a lot of really sexy stuff, and I dress in very sexy ways, and that's something I choose to do. And it's fun in games to see like the chainmail bikini sometimes. It's fun in comics to see like the crazy poses. Like it can be a really cool thing to look at. My biggest, like look at that.
That's Hawkeye's
I like how shiny
got a
it
lot
is.
in the trunk.
Damn.
He just needs a chiropractor.
But my biggest thing is there is little to no variation. If that I wanted to play a character that was like me, or that maybe was dressed actually for battle, or dressed like a human, like something that a real human being would wear, there's so few resources to do that pretty much the only thing you ever see is like chainmail bikini, like one-legged armor. Like it's great to see that, but when that's the only thing available, that's when it's the problem, when there's no variation.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing like the things that will appeal to me as a female. I want to see guys who are a little bit more effeminate too. Yeah.
Oh, you anime lover.
Yeah. Muscles don't do it for me. It's the glitter around the eyes.
I will just quick to say that I'm moderator, so I'm trying to stay out of the conversation so I can let these ladies talk, much like the industry should. Anyway, so, but one of the things I will say really quickly is I know a lot of us really love Joss Whedon, but one of the things I thought was really great was in the creation of Frey, if any of you have ever read that comic book. Have you ever read that? He specifically talks, he's like, I wanted to create a female character that you don't often see in comic books. So she's a slim girl, like she has a very small chest, she dressed kind of androgynously, like, and I think that's great. And, he made it very apparent that he was doing this because you don't see it in most of the nerddom. Okay, anyway.
The biggest misconception I see when women on the internet get up and start talking about how we need less chainmail bikinis and we need the armor in World of Warcraft to look the same whether it's on a guy or a girl, which is something that in my limited experience they've been doing better with in the modern WoW, is that a lot of people will quickly jump on you and go, but like women have a right to be sexy. And it's absolutely, women have a right to be sexy. But my easiest way to codify this is that characters don't make decisions. Creators make decisions. And you can say all you want that, she comes from this tribe of Amazon warriors and they live in a really hot place and all of their armor is just like really designed. She's supposed to be agile and it really makes sense in the lore. That's only taking it a step back. You still made up the lore. The lore is still what it is because you said it is, and it could just as easily be something else. And the fact that so much of the games industry, and even a lot of the comic book industry, is still choosing to say, oh, well, the lore is that she dresses in a way that's very appealing for people who want to see her as sexually attractive, and that's very frequently the choice instead of, well, the lore is that she's dressing because a lot of people are going to be poking sharp objects at her and she'd like them to be deflected, or she's going to be running around a jungle and she'd like to be wearing like long sleeves because there are insects, all of that stuff. That's the big point that I think escapes a lot of this sort of knee-jerk reaction to these kind of discussions.
Can I just add one thing to that also?
Yeah.
Yeah, so designers make the choices also, but what's really important is to say that players also make choices. So like when you get your hands on the material, and especially when there's customization and stuff like that, players also get that opportunity to say, I don't want my character to just have the chainmail bikini option. I want them to have an option where all of their vital organs will be covered in all the important places. And that's a choice that I think should be available to everyone, just the same way. Yeah.
Or let's run around this rocky battlefield in stilettos, like.
Unless you're a cyborg.
That's true. Cyborgs.
That's going to be a great segue. Anyway, go
well,
ahead.
I have another good segue.
Yeah, no,
so,
go for it.
one of the things that when people argue this stuff that we forget is that when you're talking about female video game characters, is that they can be wonderful characters. They can be very strong, they can be very powerful, they can be great at what they do in the video game, which is usually battle, and that's wonderful, but they're still not real women. They are characters created usually by men, usually with a male audience in mind. So when you look at them, they are a creation, generally speaking, by men for men. So when you talk about like, well, they can wear whatever they want, it's like, well, they're not actually people. Somebody made this decision to put her in this chainmail bikini. Somebody made that decision to take all of the armor off of that one leg. And that decision was probably made by a guy, probably with an, ooh, guys will buy this game if we take all the armor off of her leg.
Although that is changing a lot these days. I mean, game designers are now, a lot more women are going into game design, a lot more women are interested in doing game design, and the feedback that they're able to put into the industry is so vital to change these things so that they can say, no, there's got to be more of an option. And that's, I think, going forward, an incredible resource to the community.
I actually feel that the gaming industry, though we're kind of complaining about it, but now all the things that we're hoping for are actually happening. Like I'm seeing a lot of games, like as a cosplayer, I'm like seeing a lot of games where there's like characters with like extreme armor. I'm like, how am I supposed to make this? I want to be her. I can't build this armor, damn it.
So let's quick, because I wanted to jump into the next topic just to save time. And you made a good point about like running around a Battlefield and Stilettos. So a couple of months ago, Stella and I were filmed for part of a college humor video where, I don't know if you guys saw it, it was the laser tag one, the cosplay laser tag. So some of you, thank you, you too.
One person.
You get the idea.
And they're our friends. Anyway, so we did this video where we were dressed up as cosplay, and they did like comic book characters versus video game characters. Video game team was all women, for the record. And part of the thing is when we were about to start, like video games, like we were really planning out our strategies for this competition, and we're like, Stella, you're in your heels. Why are you gonna do that? And she's like, but it's part of my costume, and I don't want to compromise my costume to be more functional. So let's use that as the segue to go into cosplay. So we just talked a lot about game design, and we wanted to kind of talk about a little bit about how when you take game design into cosplay, the fact that the people who are in cosplay are not actually the characters that that you see in the game. So you do a whole panel just about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I do run a panel that kind of like teaches cosplayers how to react when other people are treating them the wrong way at a convention, or vice versa. Like if you are a person and you see a cosplay you like and you just go up to them and touch them, that's not okay. But basically, like, it's important to note that, like, the cosplayer, they spent a lot of time working on their costume to represent the person. That doesn't mean that they are, the bad words that people have been saying. Like the comics are saying, like, oh, well, you're a slut and you're a whore. Why are you wearing this costume? But she spent like hours and hours making that. Or even if she didn't spend hours and hours making it, she bought it from someplace, she's still wearing it and putting herself out there. It's important to remember that she's not just representing something that you like, but she's also you. You guys are of the same interests. You're of the same cut of what the phrase where the same cut of fabric or whatever, cut from the same cloth. English language. You cut from the same cloth. Like everyone, if she's dressed up, she's probably just as much of a nerd as you are. So you should compliment her on like her putting herself out there, like to entertain everyone as well as herself. Yeah.
There's this weird thing that's been going around and getting a lot of press lately in sort of media and blogs and stuff, that this idea that women cosplay or women go to conventions to get male attention.
The fake geek
The fake
girl.
dun dun. Throw a cup. That there was that whole rant by that
guy.
artist guy who will not be named because he's terrible. There was that article about like women who are 4s go to conventions because at conventions they're 9s, or like as if like we require a rating or something. I don't know, but there's this misconception that when women dress as these sexy video game characters, or when they go to a convention, or even just go to a convention in a Zelda t-shirt or a Batman t-shirt, that they're going because they want guys to pay attention to them. I kind of want to bring this out to the crowd. Is that the case? No! Good God, no. We dress like this and we go to, like, yeah. I would throw another cup, but we go to conventions and we cosplay because it's awesome, because we're nerds, because we like to. End of story. End of story.
Yeah.
And that there's a huge difference between a female game character who is dressed in a very objectifying way, who was designed by a male game designer, and a actual human woman who chooses of her own volition, of her own agency, to dress like that character because it makes her feel awesome.
Yeah.
Because it's a demonstration of her skill, and it's a great thing for her to do, and it makes her feel good.
Also, most of these characters that we cosplay are powerful women. They are strong. They have strong personalities. They kick ass. They're amazing. They're role models in their own way, and that's why we want to cosplay them. Is because we want to embody that empowerment that they represent.
Yeah, this issue blew up in the comic book world a little while ago because a guy who had been an artist in the industry for at least a few decades wrote a post on his Facebook that had a lot of capital letters in it and contained a lot of contradictions.
And terrible grammar.
Like the idea that these women only do this for attention, and they're not actually that attractive, but he's angry because it totally works on you like sucker nerd dudes. Which I guess who are his audience.
Apparently he thinks attention equals lots of money, and he thinks we receive lots of money from the attentions. We don't receive anything.
Yeah.
Sorry, dudes, apparently we're just sucking you dry. Like.
Yeah. Of your attention. It's like we're just taking it. No, like we don't get, the only thing we get is our own happiness.
My favorite contradiction in it, though, goes back to the characters don't make their own choices thing, where it's like, okay, you've been in this industry as an artist for decades, and you see women dressing up as the characters that you portray in art, and that you have at least partial responsibility for how those female characters are dressed in comics. Why is it a horrible thing if real women dress that way, but it's okay or even heroic if the women that you are completely in charge of in every way are dressing that way in the fiction that you create?
It's this weird,
And this nerd check also that goes on really has one major thing that it's saying also. It's saying that these women are coming, and then the way it's talking to the guys involved is also kind of amazing, because it's saying you men are able to be like won over and your minds are taken over. We're all people coming here for the same reasons, but seemingly there's some sort of like weird manipulative process that's supposed to be going on, and the men involved are clearly too ill-informed or to understand.
Driven by their loins in some
like they're not giving you guys any credit either. It's like, and
you guys are human beings too.
Yeah, it's incredibly
with
frustrating.
agency and choice. Yeah, everybody is.
And something, I mean, I was writing down a lot of, but somebody had just basically tweeted about like, with the design, aren't men equally taken advantage of for all these muscly things? And something to keep in mind is that it's typically the men that are designing these. There was a really great, I wish I could remember the name of it that kind of covered it.
I got this one.
Okay.
Got it.
This is about.
I probably read it off your website. So.
This is about false equivalency, right?
Yes.
About the idea that men are objectified when we depict them with big muscles and everything. And I think the thing that a lot of people who say that either don't realize or haven't internalized or whatever is because our society does not really lay this out in any way, is that the female sexual fantasy and the male power fantasy are not the same thing. And the female power fantasy and the male sexual fantasy are not, I shouldn't say not the same thing, they're not necessarily the same thing. They're not universally the same thing. This was, I think, illustrated best recently when BioWare did a poll to do the design for FemShep, the official FemShep design. And there was a big backlash in their community because they left the poll up to the entire internet as opposed to the, I think, like 18% of their fan base that has a FemShep save.
FemShep.
I'm one of you. I'm one of you. And there was a lot of feeling of we got a FemShep that was designed to be attractive and not one that we actually want to be, which is not a statement saying that we don't want to be an attractive FemShep, but that we have other things that are on those like priority sliders.
And well done to them also for, I mean, who went on the cover was a major issue also for a while. They were talking about, was it going to be male Shep or female Shep? And they ended up doing a reversible cover because you could pop it in and out. If you're going to be playing female Shep, you could be represented too. And that was an amazing choice on their part, and that's why, I mean, I applaud BioWare for their choices on gender and sexuality for all of the work that they've done. So.
I do want to read a tweet from one of you guys, and we are reading your tweets up here, so thanks. It's awesome.
We promise we're paying attention to.
I just want to read a tweet from @Themasyra. I hope I'm saying this right. It's kind of sad that FemShep like Ripley is so awesome because a male character was the default assumption, and my phone was the default assumption. And I think that is something interesting to keep in mind, that some of the coolest female characters were originally actually written as men, and that just, I think, says a lot. And I do want to say that playing Mass Effect and designing my own Shepard as a female Shepard, and designing her, making what she looked like, making her choices, and having the game treat her exactly as the male Shepard, like the camera didn't pan up her butt, and like everybody talked to her exactly as they would have talked to either Shepard, was like the first time I've ever played a video game where I actually felt like the person represented that I was playing as was me.
Welcome.
Yeah, and the list of female characters that exist because they were originally male characters in the script and then were made female for whatever reason is actually a really interesting one. There's Femshep, there's Ripley. Dory from Finding Nemo was originally going to be a male character.
Starbuck.
Starbuck and Battlestar Galactica is a good gender swap. The Yellow Ranger in Power Rangers in the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is a dude in the Japanese version. And once you start going down that list, you start going like, oh my God, I love every single one of these
Aliens.
characters.
The movie Aliens, originally was written with a male lead, and then they're like, Sigourney Weaver's really good. We're just going to cast her. And actually, the whole cast was gender neutral when they wrote the script.
Yeah.
So.
And it's not that we're saying it's bad to like write a male character and then decide to make it a female character. That's not a bad thing. It's just an interesting thing.
And I would add the caveat that usually the first thing gets said when guys come up and, well, people of all kinds get up and ask, how do I write a good female character? Usually the first thing that's said is to, well, write them as a person.
Yes.
And that works in a lot of cases, but you won't get to the point where you're writing stories about being a woman that way. Yeah. So it's a good guideline, but there are exceptions to it, and I think the best rule for that is to just, if you're not sure how to write a female character, talk to the women you know, and talk to them about the character, and
what kind of people they would want to see in a game.
Yeah.
And have women on your team designing. How about that? I mean, like, I'm going to come back to this again and again, but I'm working on my first video game now, and one of the big conversations we had was the protagonist going to be male or female, and it was a male on the team who turned around and was like, let's make it a girl. Like, there's no reason not to, and it'll be a great story. And yeah, and I turned to him and I was like, you are the future of this industry, and thank you so much for being awesome. And as long as we have more people who are willing to do that on both sides of the aisle, who are able and allowing themselves to look at a character neutrally and say, what is the best choice for the product and for the story, rather than for what our audience is expecting, that's when we're going to get the better video games out there.
Mm-hmm. So panel, I think we're, just because of time, I think we're just going to combine the last two things. So, I'm going to start with this tweet from James Rossiel, which just says, why is there no man on the panel? To which I respond, because they're on all the other panels. That's the best I can do to like dropping the mic, right? But let's talk about that. So the last two topics we're going to talk about is Booth Babes, which could be its own entire panel, but also just the media attention. And this is where I feel a lot of the white knighting comes in that we have on the thing. Because of the fact that, this was a pretty big panel because of the fact that it's an all-women panel talking about women. Men, you guys have thoughts too, but one of the important things, I'm talking, you guys are the talkers, sorry about that. Guys, how do you feel about media attention for the issue of women in gaming?
Well, I understand a lot of girls are joining the gamer ranks for the love of the game. Recent YouTube, anyway.
We're calling out a particular article that came out recently in Kotaku, which I love. It was a wonderful article where it was covering these news reports that were suddenly going, girls are in video games. It's a new thing. They're into games. And we're sitting here going, hi, we've been here, hi, I'm older. Where have you been? I don't understand. You just sent news cameras to us, didn't you, now?
This is not news.
Yeah. But it was a wonderful article that it basically called out the fact that people are now finding that this is an event. We are suddenly appearing, and it's not an event.
Come on, this happened decades ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the media coverage.
I don't, Susana, do you have a thought about,
about media? One of my, White Knight is actually one of my biggest, if I could strike it from the realms of the internet as a term. Because as a derogatory term, I feel like it belittles the work of male allies of the feminist movement, which allies are incredibly important. Yeah. And also just like the regular, just sort of understanding what an ally is as somebody who where you amplify the voices of the people in the marginalized group that you are trying to help out rather than speaking for them.
Susana, what would you say your definition of white knighting would be?
I don't know, there's so much of it, as a derogatory term, I feel like it denigrates allies, and as a compliment, I feel like it invokes weird stuff about women needing like a special guy to help them out, and I don't like it.
I mean, I feel like, I guess, white knighting, talking about like men, usually male gaming critics or male press, talking about this issue about women in gaming on behalf of women instead of actually letting women speak for themselves.
Well, it's funny because I think that there's a lot of guys who have absolutely the right to, like, it's an old saying, you know, if you see something, say something. If you feel a certain way, do it. But I think that it gets a lot of backlash because there is this expectation that women should be able to speak up for themselves. And I've seen a lot of guys back out of conversations just because they're like, we don't want to take negative flack for suddenly being like, now you're oppressing us. No, I think it needs to be equally accepted that men have a stake in this too, for their representation, for the women that they know, for the community they want to foster. If they have children that they're fostering into the next generation, you know, they have as just amount of a right to talk about the community, and I think, you know, no matter who's doing the talking, it just needs to be said.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest areas, particularly in media attention, where this issue has been, where white knighting and such has been the biggest problem, is the whole question of booth babes. And I have a lot to say on the topic, so I'm going to try and keep it short. But we've had so many articles from all these dudes being like, booth babes, they're terrible, or booth babes, they're great, or like booth babes. Maybe we should look at this critically. The problem is there are, and yes, we should. The problem is that there are, it seems, a dearth. There are just so few articles or anything where anybody actually thinks to, like, hey, let's go talk to a booth babe.
No one talks.
No one talks. Like, and there are a few. There was an article on Jezebel where they interviewed a booth babe about her experiences, and that was a good read. And I mean, and even the term booth babe, I think, is crazy because it's such an umbrella term that encompasses so many different kinds of people in different contexts. Like, are you talking about a convention like this where it's mostly consumers looking at video games? Are you talking about a industry convention where it's women in bikinis advertising computers or a car that have actually nothing to do with the product itself? Are you talking about professional cosplayers who are dressing up like an actual character from a game? Are you talking about professional models who have been given a costume like a character from a game? These are all different people who are there for different reasons in completely different contexts, and they all have their wonderful reasons that they're there and their negative reasons that they're there. And I think each one should be looked at differently. So when people talk about booth babes, it's like you have to look at it a little closer because there's a lot going on here under this umbrella term that isn't just like, we hate them or we love them. There's so much more going on.
Also, they really get the job done. They work really hard. They came to this convention not to enjoy it, but to foster, to help other people learn about the product. They bring results. People do go to booths that have lovely women there who are charismatic and fun to talk to. We shouldn't hate them for working so hard.
And Stella and I are former booth babes.
As am I.
Like, we've done it, and it's a stressful job. Like, it kind of sucks. Like, it actually kind of really sucks to do. You're in an uncomfortable costume and high heels, and there's lots, like, you've been on the floor, like, there's lots of people pressing around you, and it's airless, and people are yelling at you, and it's a tough job, and I think doing it, they deserve to get paid, they deserve to make their money, and they deserve to be respected, even if we don't necessarily agree with why they're there or what they're doing or the reason they're doing it for.
I know you ladies have something I just wanted to quick jump into. And something is to be said about the whole idea that it's like, well, I guess a booth babe is okay as long as she knows the game or as long as she's a nerd. And what that kind of equates to is it's the same idea of turning away women because they don't know enough about the game. It's equal at its roots. You know, if you're working a booth, you know, most likely you should probably know about the game that you're doing. But it's one of those things where we can't. It's not right to judge somebody just because they're not at the same nerd standard of us, especially if you're doing it and you're pinpointing them out because they're a woman and they happen to be dressed like a character that was typically designed by a man.
Women shouldn't have to prove that they need to be there.
Yes.
So I'm going to let you go, but I will talk that because you just did that. Lorem Canis did say, she said, throw a cup. It's like a drinking game, but with misogyny and feminist rage. So, okay,
it's just because I'm really unreasonable.
So let's let Susana and Shoshana, you guys talk, and then we're going to get to the Q&A.
Yeah, the monolithic sort of idea of what a booth babe is, and that you can sort of rage against the sort of the mainstreamed idea of what a booth babe is, which is the hot chick who's dressed provocatively in front of a booth, who doesn't know anything about it, and the fact that people's reaction to that is to hate booth babes and not to necessarily go to having a problem with the people who hired them and think that they are a good marketing gimmick in the first place, or the society that means that they are a good marketing gimmick. If I have one problem with booth babes, it isn't with booth babes themselves, but rather the fact that since they have existed in the con, and not just geek cons, but like, car shows and all of that, because they've existed in those industries for so long, they've created this perception that any woman on the floor of that con working for a booth or an exhibitor, regardless of whether she's dressed in a bikini or in a polo shirt that's buttoned all the way up, is there to attract people to the booth with her body and not her mind. And it's a tricky situation because I don't know like what the solution to that is without restricting.
I'd use that to my advantage. I would get people to come to the booth with my body and then just like show them that I know what I'm talking about and I'm just as excited about this product as you are, and I can show you how to use it. Like I will use the negative energy and turn it into something positive by changing their perspective on how we work and how we are.
I think that's wonderful, actually, because that takes the weight off of the situation for a lot of people. I know that a lot of women who I've spoken to who want to cosplay or who want to get into, being involved in activities like that, don't do it because of that, like, fear of being treated on the floor as if they're some sort of commodity or object. And I think I'm really conflicted myself about the booth babe situation. Early on when I started looking, I was doing photography for costuming, and I felt really kind of uncomfortable with the way that it is all about objectifying these women. And so I had to really talk to a lot of cosplayers and talk to a lot of people and say, there's a difference. There really is a difference between people who are being put up there for objectification, people who are feeling objectified, also talking to models who were doing this, who actually felt objectified and felt uncomfortable. And so it wasn't just me looking at it, it was the women who were involved feeling uncomfortable as well, and those who were super excited to be there, and their buy-in was high, and they were like, yes, I'm here because I love it. And that sort of brought me to a better understanding that this is a complicated topic. I am an equal opportunity kind of person, though. If you're gonna have booth babes, there better be men there. Yeah. You better have guys there. Every good booth should have, if you're gonna have guys like dressed up like X-Men characters or characters from Borderlands or whatever it is, you better have some Kratos. Right? Loincloths for everybody, and let's go. And that's it.
I will say that as much as we're, like talking about the Firefall, the one leg thing, they do have a cosplayer there who's a male who made his costume, and it looks so badass. Yeah. And he's like 7 feet tall with these like big bionic arms, alongside the girl who also made her own costume with the one leg thing. Yep. But she looks amazing with like spinal armor and like big arm thing. They are both representing the game equally as they're like, yeah. Great.
Again, big difference between the game as it's designed and the people, the actual human beings who decide to dress like that.
Right.
Big difference.
Okay, so we're going to get into the Q&A. I'm going to let you, don't worry, I'm going to let you say it. We're going to get to the Q&A. I have been looking through, I haven't been ignoring you. I'm not like a horrible moderator who's just checking her phone. I have been taking some of the questions off of the hashtag. And we are going to do some live questions as well. So we have our wonderful rogue here in the audience, ZP Keister, who will be moderating. So if you have a specific question, we just ask that you keep it short and specific so that we'll do a line. So that we can try to answer as many of these as possible in the time that we have.
Anja, can I call out one really good question, though, that popped up? I don't know if you have it, but there was a really great one there on the Twitter feed. Is that okay?
Let's let Iris do it,
while
and then
you guys
can
are
ask.
lining up, I just somebody on the hashtag, whose Twitter handle shall remain anonymous because I'm a nice person, says, it must be painful to have that much sand in one's vagina. The problem isn't so much the sand, it's the misogyny.
Shoshana, you want to go with the first question?
Yes, thank you. I just lost it because it moved, but basically somebody brought up body types. Somebody brought up what is it, how do you feel about, different body types that are being represented? I think that's super awesome for the question, basically about overweight characters and characters of different body types. I think that it would be wonderful to see characters of different body types out there. Any design that doesn't basically make you...
Or different body types where it's not a stigma.
Where it's not a stigma.
Because you definitely have, like in Borderlands, like you have the really, and it's, it's great because, it's nice to see her, but she's also just a comedic person who's supposed to be like a slob, so.
Protagonists that are of different body types that are not the standard are a problem in all media right now. I don't think that it's going to be solved by like the video game industry suddenly being like, we're going to be totally okay with having overweight characters and we should all, like it's media in general that's going to have to adapt to that. But I think in video games, if we manage to have that, then cool. We're gonna see some really great stories coming out of it that haven't been seen before. So yeah, rock on.
Cool. Let's go with a question for the audience, yes. Oh, can we get the mic? Do you need to turn it on maybe? Okay, I'm going to do a question here and then we'll come back. Is it working? Go for it.
Hey, I recently outed myself as a gamer to more people, and it's been really fun, but I like to play on Xbox Live. Oh. And as soon as I out myself as a girl in multiplayer, no one will resurrect me when I die. Oh.
Iris, give her the cups. She needs them.
Yeah, just...
Yeah. Come throw a cup.
Fling it, yeah.
They did, I mean, I'll let you guys talk too, but there was a recent study that was amazing where they did like 3 different studies where first they had characters just play with mics off, and then they had characters play with mics on, but they did not say their gender, and then they did another one where they had it a man and a woman, and it was all automated responses. So it was like the man, when they were saying, because it was all pre-recorded, so like what he said, it was the exact same thing that the female gamer had been doing.
And it was all neutral stuff, like, good game,
good game,
hello.
Yeah, and it was amazing. I don't remember the statistics, so you guys with phones, you should all look it up, because it was ridiculous.
Like the female voice got 3 times as much harassment, or it was like I don't know the exact number, but it was ridiculous.
And then they also got like hit on in like the messaging.
And some of them were pretty nasty. I mean, it's an academic study. It actually was done by academics to find out what is the ratio of trolling for women. And it's pretty high, guys. This is actually a study. But, somebody at college did this. Yeah, you could do this for a living.
Yeah, let's jump that into one of the questions that had come from the Twitter. Where was it? Matt Dobill had said, does objectification of women in video games turn female gamers away? Let's just ask, for those of you in the audience, on the count of 3, does it turn you away? 1, 2, 3. Okay, but you guys can also talk.
I mean, I still like games. Like, I still play them, I still love them, but it makes me uncomfortable, and sometimes it will make me turn off a game or not want to buy. Guys, designers, game companies, I will not want to buy your game if it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, okay.
I have monies.
My door into nerd things of all genres was Batman comics. Like, giant Batman nerd. The Arkham Asylum games are the first time I have ever wanted to be Batman, though. Like, the experience of playing them was just like, it's like, oh, now I don't just like Batman, like I actually actively want to be him. And in the second game, I found out that Catwoman was a playable character, and I was like, yes, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna get to be Catwoman. And being Catwoman is awesome. Beating up a bunch of thugs as Catwoman is awesome, but I have to keep her moving because her idle animation is so quick to activate, and it's such like I'm stretching because there's a guy over there that I like, even though I'm on a rooftop and completely alone. And can I get past that and keep playing the game and like super enjoy Arkham City, and am I totally stoked for the next one? Absolutely. But it's a hurdle that I've got to get over. And the fact that it's a hurdle there, that I like it despite that. Like, there shouldn't be a despite.
I think there's lots of games also that try to market towards making people more comfortable and fall into the pratfalls of just like strange little things. There was a game that shall remain nameless because it's huge right now, that basically tries to modernize a female character to be more comfortable for women. And it's a great gameplay, and you feel really empowered. And then all of a sudden, halfway through, one of the character's mentors goes, "That was really great for a girl, or like a lady, or like she's," and it just knocked me like right out of it, and I just put the controller down, and I was like, was that really necessary? I just killed a bunch of dudes. Like, I just did this badass thing. Why is it necessary to bring up, you just did a great job? Oh yeah, I get a cup, okay.
You get a cup.
Why do I have to be just called a girl at every given moment all the time? There it goes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Audience, yes.
Hi, Shoshana, I just wanted to say I saw you at the Indie Kid. NYU should have won. It was that blood bag. It was your wrench. I'm so sorry. But my question, I'm a blogger. I write for Girl Gamer Vogue. It's my own website. So I guess my sort of, thank you. My question is, how do I sort of tackle this? Because, you know, being a female gaming blogger, especially a journalist, it's in itself. I mean, this.
I know that there are other people out there who do what you do, and, you know, they have cool ideas too.
Also, if you want to tweet your address for your blog with the PAX Like a Girl, then you guys can all start following it. You did it twice? Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, check out her blog.
Let's go to, because we were kind of talking on it before. Girl Next Door, as well as a couple other people, had asked, is the new Tomb Raider a step in the right direction?
Oh boy.
I haven't played it, so
The what?
I'm gonna.
According
Shoshana has-
to
yeah.
our video games reviewer, Becky, who I love and adore, it's really good. My copy is waiting for me in my apartment, and I get to play it when I go home. But yeah, I mean, we have a review on the site. I guess I can't like scientifically independently verify that it's
Shoshana has
awesome,
played it.
but-
I've played it. I wrote my thesis last semester on the trailers for it and analyzing the trailers, and then I went and played it. And here's my take on it. The game that I was just talking about a minute ago about the little lady comment is from there. It's it's the beginning part. The parts that were problematic in the trailers are not as problematic as you think, but they are kind of uncomfortable. And I would definitely say for a woman playing that game, there's a scene that sort of implies the sort of sexualization of her that I was really uncomfortable with. And a roommate of mine was completely triggered by it and walked out of the room. And she's like, that was unnecessary for a Lara Croft scene. And we basically had a long talk about it. And I said in an article I'm writing now, which is, would they do that to Nathan Drake? No. Never would have done a hair sniffing and an arm touch. It was not okay for me. So that's my feel on it. The gameplay is stellar. The entire game feels wonderful. I love playing it. It's a kick-ass female character. That scene was unnecessary. So I love the game in general. I still suggest it for people. Just be prepared for that.
Okay.
One last thing to point out about that. Would they have advertised an Uncharted game by saying, look how much Nathan Drake gets hurt
Yeah.
in this game?
Yeah.
No, they know. And that was what all the advertising was, is look how hurt she gets.
In her tank top, which isn't a sports bra anymore.
Anyway, moving on.
Hello, I'm a college student and I want to become a character concept artist and an animator in a video game.
Right on.
Because of what you said, I want to see female characters who look like me and who is a person like me. But what I'm afraid of is when I get into the industry, even having to deal with other male coworkers, is having to compromise my morals. If I produce a female character, how will I react to when someone says, why is her breast not big enough? You can barely tell she's a girl. Why is she so fat? I don't want to compromise my morals, but what if I lose my job instead and not be able to change anything if I'm jobless?
Okay, here's the important part. If you believe in it strong enough, you say it. And I know that that's hard. I mean, I know that that's difficult. But, and not everybody's going to feel comfortable enough to do that. But if you're on a team of people and you get concept art in front of you that's not okay, turn it around and say, this is why. But be reasonable about it, be calm as much as you can. I know it's difficult
Don't
sometimes.
throw any cups.
But don't throw cups at the table,
Can
yeah.
I throw a cup now?
But explain why this will do better for the project. Yeah, you can toss a cup
get a
now.
cup, you get a cup.
It's
I
totally
needed
fine.
this so much.
Yeah. But make sure that they understand why it's important for the project. Because what's more important is the bottom line. People vote with their dollars, and if you say that the bottom line is going to be improved by a better game with this, people will listen.
Well, yeah, because we make up half the market. You can't alienate half the market and expect to sell a game.
One of the things that
One of the things that I hate hearing is when I'm working on a game or anything, there's like, oh, that looks a little too feminine. Can you make it more neutral? And I'm just like, or like when they're like, oh, we don't want like that color because it'll be just like too feminine. I'm like, well, guys can like pink too. Guys can like purple.
Right.
This doesn't look too feminine. Why are we avoiding? Why are we trying to figure out like what is a woman demographic versus like the man's demographic? Can we just try and aim for like a more neutral overall rather than like specifically designing for guys, specifically designing for women? We want to design for everyone, and I'm pretty sure people aren't going to complain if the girl doesn't have big enough boobs. They're like, it's better to not have them there than to have them there for people to just look at. You know? Okay. We're running out of time. I'm going to do another quick one. So, ladies, keep it short.
Nope.
Okay. Bill Mercer says, have you ever been in a situation where the night white was more offensive than the troll?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that was nice and short. Okay.
It's patronizing. Like it's insidious and it's patronizing, and it makes you feel like you're a child that needs to be taken care of, and that can be more damaging than somebody who's just aggro at you.
Yeah. Go applaud. Okay,
Truth be told, I can defend myself. I don't need anyone to.
I'll just quick answer this one just so we can get some more of these people here. Prince Abbasi had said, "Why do we need to mention gender? Isn't this just creating more of a divide?" It's a valid point. One of the things that I have tried doing is I've stopped saying geek girl or like nerd girl, and I just say nerd because I don't feel the term geek or nerd should be genderized at all. And it's your choice. Like Geek Girl Con is a great con, so like nothing against them. But one of the things is that when you are the majority, both on the planet and in the actual gaming community, and you're still not mentioned, I think it's okay to draw attention to it because obviously they're not paying attention to the fact of who you are. So, yeah. You want to quick add anything? No? Okay.
No, that was good. That was good.
Question.
Hi, looking out, there's a great mix of people, men and women, and I was wondering if a community exists online for people with these concerns to get together, talk about it, advocate changes in the industry, and become a part of a greater movement for change.
Heck
And
yes.
if not,
Yeah.
how can maybe I start that?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, I could call out a bunch of really great organizations. Gaming as Women is a great blog that talks about issues about gender and representation in design. There's also conferences that are coming out. I mean, the Geek Girl convention. There's also different games that's going to be in New York talking about all minorities that are not represented in games. It's being fostered out of NYU Poly, and that's going to be huge. I mean, like, there are all these people online, but if you don't have it in your area, start it up. There's plenty of girls around. You probably don't know where they are, and if you do, put it out online. Find it. You will find people. They're everywhere. Yeah.
There's one
there you
there.
go. You got a card. There you go.
hey.
That's a start.
Wait, what is that? Tell us.
This is GOSC.TV, Brandy Brightside.
Cool.
Cool.
I also want to give a shout out.
Tweet that so other people can see it too. Or whoever just gave
Whoever
her the
gave
card.
the card, just tweet it under the hashtag. I also want to give a shout out to, so this is if you guys are on Reddit, there's a really, really controversial subreddit that I actually really love called Shit Reddit Says. I know some people are like, ooh, and some people are like, yay, and I just want to say that their purpose is to point out all of the racism, misogyny, and horrible things that are on Reddit, which I think they do very well, and they also have a whole network of communities that foster really wonderful discussions and a lot of really safe spaces for women or people who are not white or people who are of different sexualities and different genders. So if you're a big Redditor and you're looking for a haven from kind of the awful crap, go to our Shit Reddit Says and find that whole community in there.
Okay, great. Let's quick do that one. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to hit as many live people as we can in the next like 3 minutes.
And we'll try to respond to some of the Twitter ones on Twitter itself.
Yeah, exactly. If you did one on Twitter and we didn't get to it, one of us will try to respond to it so we can keep the conversation going. Yes.
Okay. Hey, so basically, I've run into a situation this year at PAX that I've never kind of run into before, where I'll be like talking with other girls, and then all of a sudden they'll kind of drop this little like misogyny bomb, you know, and they'll just, and either sometimes it's about like cosplayers, like even if somebody walks by, it's kind of that like, what the fuck, and I want to say, you know, I want to say something, be like, that's not cool, but I'm wondering, like, what do you guys think? Like, how can you constructively tell someone to knock it the fuck off?
It's something to point out that just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you can't be a misogynist. Like, it's true.
I mean, sometimes I tackle this a lot as a sex educator. Sometimes you just have to be very clear about your boundaries. And you just have to say, hey, that thing you just said, not cool. And I would appreciate it if you don't say things like that around me. And then you can tell them, I like you as a person, but I do not like that thing you just said. And if you respect me, you'll just watch if you try and make sure not to say things like that around me.
I think women also have this thing where because of all the issues that we've had, and like sometimes we can get really defensive of our space and we start to get catty and territorial and weird about the sexuality question. And I think that just stopping that and realizing where it's coming from, that it's coming from this place of feeling vulnerable and weirded out by it, and calling people on that sometimes is what you need to do. Just say, hey, we don't need to perpetuate this. We don't need to continue this. We can be supportive of one another.
Yes, yeah, totally. Cool. Support each other. Yes. Next question. Oh, did we not get to moderate it? Okay, it's cool. It's cool. Sarah Tajan said, what? Oh, yeah, go for it, yeah.
I just really, this is an interesting question. At Tilde Mag says, what about girls in the nerd community who feel like they have to move away from their feminine interests to be accepted?
Oh, I totally relate
one.
to that one. Yeah.
Personally, I don't think that being a gamer or being a nerd is less feminine than anything else in this planet. I think you can be very, very feminine and still really like this stuff.
Yeah.
Or not. It's cool.
Or not. That's cool too.
It's all about the support either way.
I can see where there are a lot of issues because these games are made for a male audience and they're like, rawr, shoot things.
Or because you need to go out and find dudes to play Dungeons and Dragons with because you don't know any women who play. You know,
you don't have to prove
go
yourself to anybody. Like, don't play Halo just because you want to be accepted by everyone. Like, play Halo because you like shooting heads.
There's a wide variety of games, like platformers and puzzle games and games of beauty and games that are there's the indie games there's a ton of really wonderful, gender neutral, just like games, beautiful worlds you can explore. So
and if you're creating your own tabletop games and such, be okay with accepting feminine things in the worlds you're creating as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question is, I feel like there are some recurrent logical fallacies that do have names, like earlier on the slideshow there was the false equivalency, and there's also, the straw feminist. But one thing that I've noticed, and I'm not sure, one thing that I've noticed that I'm wondering if you could speak to is that when games or comics come out that are progressive, that then people use those as examples for why there isn't a problem, even though those are direct responses to the problem.
It was the same thing that Anja just said, like, why is this a panel of all women? Because the men are on every other panel. Just because there's one amazing game does not mean that the whole industry has changed.
They did some wonderful comparisons with comic books recently, because there's been a lot of comics that are headlining women doing, like, I'm going to call it the X-Men comic that's going to be an all-women team, which is going to be great. And but they put it side by side with every other comic, and you still see it's not changing. It's changing things.
The writer on that one was retweeting a lot of the tweets that he was getting at. They're like, you know what would make your all-female X-Men team better? A dude.
Yeah. Example A.
Obviously, there is a problem if we're here talking about it.
Yeah. Let's. Oh, guys.
2 minutes.
Okay, one more.
You ready?
Go. No, do it. Yes.
Just sort of where games are now, for example, Valve with Chell and Alex Vance, and even Tomb Raider. A lot of the people on that team are females. In fact, almost all the panel yesterday were females at that press conference. Do you see the trajectory of these sort of issues on a positive note? Do you see it going in a positive direction?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, just in comics, the fact that this is going to get a little obscure comicsy stuff, but DC rebooted their entire universe and they called it the New 52, and when they launched it, there were only 2 female creators involved in the entire project of 52 titles. And people got up in arms about that, and the fact that people were actually able to be vocally up in arms about that, and that it was a movement at all, not like a movement, but that it was any kind of pushback at all would not have happened 20 years ago. And the fact that Marvel dropped a couple books and everybody realized that they didn't have a single book that had a female lead in it. anymore. And we're like, wow, Marvel, maybe you should change that a little bit, and they are. And the fact that we're having conversations in, all right, here to go a good one.
Well, the panel also yesterday, I mean, specifically, talking about Tomb Raider, I think it's wonderful, yeah, that whole team was very female-driven, and I think what's great also about this situation is we can disagree on what is and is not a good feminine portrayal. I can absolutely disagree with it, and we're still, both feminine broskies, I guess, like we're in the same field. But like, the idea also is that they're still designing towards men for men largely, and that's the issue. It doesn't matter if you're a woman who's being asked to do that or a woman who's trying not to. You're still in that field. As long as the gaze is in that direction, as long as that's what the market is for, we're still going to have these problems.
I will say, though, that just because we're talking about this means that good things are happening. Yeah. Like, having this conversation is a step in the right direction.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, and I would love to hear your questions. So once again, if you we'll stand out there for a little bit if you have other questions. If you do have other questions and you want to put them on the hashtag, go for it. That'd be great. We'd love to hear it.
Here's a long bus ride home.
Here's some information about, some of us are we're all going back to New York, so it's like at least 5 hours to answer your Twitter questions. Here's some information about us if you want to find out more about us.